It's the only trophy Manchester City didn't win last season. 20 teams, but only one can be left standing in Premier League Imperialism on Football Manager 2024. All the teams are on a map of England, and once a team is picked, an arrow decides who they're gonna battle. Win your match and take your opponent's land. Last team standing wins. The first match saw a London encounter of Tottenham versus Brentford. Unlike the start of the Premier League, where Carlson begins his Imperialism with a banger. A great start for Big Andre's men, and his £40 million signing of James Maddison was cooking. He got his second assist thanks to Pedro Porro, whose mere presence made fucking dive out of bounds. The game is in its beta version, so hopefully things like this will be fixed by the time the full release arrives. I'm sure you won't see too many more things like this.
I tried to hide the situation.
I guess no one told Spurs' new goalkeeper Vicario that 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football. His blushes wouldn't last long, as this was James Maddison's day. He'd restore the 2-goal lead, and despite Brentford getting a few good chances, their land would be stolen by Tottenham. Game 2 saw Everton picked and head southeast to Manchester United. For the lineups, I chose the ones from the last Premier League game as of recording, which was before the October international break. I tried to use the same players, but some weren't available, like Udogie with Spurs. Anyways, what was United's lineup? Oh, I'm so sorry, United fans. Jack Harrison would score the opener, as Onana continued not to be able to keep a clean sheet.
Hold up. Wait a minute!
United had a good chance in the 13th minute, Rashford missed a back post header in the 70th, and a couple Bruno free kicks flew over the bar. However, Everton defeated Manchester United. I guess that's what happens when you forget to bring on the GOAT, Scotty Mac. A bridge was built to take the land. Well, not on this map. But neither are Arsenal, who were the FM23 London Imperialism winners. The first half had nothing, but as the second half corner was getting delivered, David Moyes put some extra cheese on his sandwich. Jorginho's lactose intolerant responded right away with a banger. It was too good to be true for the Hammers, as after Antonio's point-blank miss, James Ward-Prowse gave away a penalty, which Odegaard converted. With 25 minutes to go, I allow 3 substitutions to be made for each side and make slight adjustments like shifting the mentality based on the situation. One of West Ham's subs, Benrahma, had a huge chance to equalize, but he couldn't convert and Arsenal pulled through, winning some more London territory. We get a Midlands battle next, as Wolves are chosen to face Aston Villa. And it wasn't going to be an easy night for Wolves. Ezri Konsa playing right back exposed them, as he was given all the time in the world to score. It should have been straightforward from there, but in the 79th minute, 4 players missed the ball, and Boubacar Kamara decided to take an awful touch, allowing Zaza the Glossglockner Kalajdzic to equalize. This one's going to extra time, and the Man Mountain nearly got its brace. Unfortunately, Wolves would rue that miss, as straight after, John McGinn rifled the winner into the top corner. It was a good effort with 10 men, but Aston Villa were the true underdogs in this Imperialism. They were up again, but had the difficulty raised up to 1,000. Oh, sorry Liverpool, I turned it the wrong way. Let me fix that for you. This was routine for Liverpool, concede first and make a comeback. Yet Villa were the ones to get the lead again. It seemed too good to be true. And it was, with Liverpool winning a penalty about a minute later. Mo Salah versus Big Dick Emi Martinez. As the time went on, more space opened up for Aston Villa, and they would eventually find a third, causing a huge shock. Now they can sit back and see who Nottingham Forest plays. Again? Unai hasn't seen his family in months? Nothing went on until the 64th minute, where Nuno Tavares, who was in for the non-existent Toffolo, got himself sent off. The extra space nearly gave Bailey the go-ahead goal. Luckily, they wouldn't have to wait much longer, as Zaniolo was taken down in the box, and Oliver Watkins gave Villa the win. Now they can rest because Manchester City entered the fray. In their travels northeast to Sheffield United, it would go as expected, with Ahmed Hodzic scoring from a corner. And of course, Kyle Walker would equalize. What's next? Mateo Kovacic actually scores? He actually does in the 50th minute. It was long shot mania today, as Bernardo Silva would also score from outside the box. Man City gets a 3-1 win and a lot of land. On to the south coast, as Bournemouth travels to Brighton. Despite early dominance from the Seagulls, it was the man who I once called the C-Tech Lewandowski, Dominic Solanke, who completely churned Lewis Dunk to take a surprise lead. Despite some decent efforts, Brighton didn't have enough for the Cherries, as another shock was on the board. A London battle is up next, with Chelsea heading south to Croydon to face Crystal Palace. Basically, nothing happened for the entire game. But with the clock just past the added minutes, Palace defenders became complacent at the wrong time, with Nicholas Jackson finding space to slot in the winner. The landscape is shrinking. You just have to look really hard. That's not the case for the next match, with Bournemouth assigned a fixture with Luton Town. The Hatters showed off their Route 1 style, with Doughty's delivery missed by everyone except for Elijah Adebayo. He'd hit the woodwork moments later. Unfortunately, it seemed too good to be true for Luton, as Bournemouth began to get into the match in the second half. Lewis Cook cleaned up the garbage from a corner, and the subbed-on Justin Kluivert smacked one in from the top of the D. And that would be it for Luton Town. Chelsea are picked once again, and head south to challenge Bournemouth's now gigantic piece of land. So what Chelsea would we get? Well, a goal from former academy striker Dominic Solanke gave a good indication. Later on, the subs made did not benefit Chelsea, with Kluivert sealing the match for Bournemouth. The Cherries get to show off again in a battle with Aston Villa. Their two biggest pieces of land up for grabs. The villains would strike first, with Douglas Luiz found by John McGinn. Bournemouth nearly cooked something up from the halftime kickoff. Unfortunately for the Cherries, all their hard work so far was erased by Unai's genius. Aston Villa now own the majority of the land. Newcastle were finally picked, and out of their two choices, they got their preferred one. Vincent Kompany's team had 4 starters not available in this game mode for some reason. However, it wasn't just a lineup out of sorts, but their ability to keep the ball, as Isak took advantage of that. Not even 10 minutes in, and the lead doubled with Anderson's back post header. This was getting ugly, as Isak made it 3 within 27. Despite Burnley finding one back, Isak got a hat-trick before halftime. Newcastle had been waiting, but they clearly were ready. Would Arsenal be next to succumb to Aston Villa? It's their first non-London matchup, and while they had a few moments, in the 72nd minute, Ben White got sun in his eyes, and Watkins took advantage. Villa pulling off another upset. Can they do one more versus Manchester City? Well, you know how I had this bit about Kovacic earlier? Well, he would get his second of this Imperialism, which is half of his total career Premier League goals. In the second half, Villa was getting closer to an equalizer, and they didn't give up. Zaniolo, who hadn't been suspended for betting yet, was sent in behind and gave Villa a little bit of life. In extra time, you didn't have to wait too long to see a goal. Only a minute in, and Doku gets City's lead back. Small margins play a big factor in football, as on one side, Zaniolo smacked the post, and moments later, Foden would find City's third. Zaniolo continued to try his best in the last 15, assisting Watkins to bring them within 1. Sadly, it wouldn't be enough. Aston Villa had a great run, but as cruel as Imperialism is, they weren't one of the final 5 teams. Fulham were, who finally entered the fray and got to decide which Premier League team takes the last bit that remains in London. Spurs were providing problems, but some big saves from Leno kept it scoreless all the way to extra time, where we finally saw the opener at the tail end of the first half. Son's corner found Mickey van de Ven. Fulham wouldn't do themselves any favors in the latter half, with sub Sasha Lukic seeing red. It took more work than expected. The Spurs moved on to the Final 4 with Manchester City, Newcastle, and Everton. In the Final 4, I will allow the best lineups to be used by a quick pick since everyone used their original and at times restricted lineup once. Up first was Newcastle, who were picked to play Man City. I missed the first half while in the bathroom, but Man City with a 2.13 XG seemed to be dominant despite a scoreless game. Let's see what happened. So it would make sense for Newcastle to open the scoring off a corner, with Kyle Walker on the post doing nothing to stop Joelinton's header. Manchester City were less dominant in the second half, and Isak clinched the game with a 90th minute goal. We're down to 3. Tottenham is picked, and they can only play Newcastle, which means Everton makes the Imperialism final, to the shock of everyone, most especially Everton fans. In the penultimate match, Bissouma remembered everyone bashing his name last year and sauced around for the first goal. It seemed like Spurs were on their way to the final, but not so fast. With 12 to go, Newcastle conjured up the most genius of corners. Either that, or Anthony Gordon completely scuffed his shot. I prefer the latter. However, off the kickoff, Spurs reacted straight away as Maddison took back the lead. Nothing else happened, which means Spurs takes Newcastle's land and face Everton in the Premier League Imperialism final. Probably not the two you expected, and with the nerves surely being high, Dele Alli, who's making his first appearance on a football pitch for a while, took down Son. Maddison stepped up instead of the South Korean, probably due to his incredible performances, but Pickford smothered the pen. Not even 10 minutes later, Ashley Young zipped one from distance, leading to a corner. Off it, Dwight McNeil would find Jared Branthwaite to open the affair. Beginning the second half, Spurs nearly scored a corner of their own. Then, in the 78th minute, Maddison would make up for his penalty miss. Except no, he wouldn't. The guy was clearly offside. It was a bad day for him and his team, as in the 90th minute, Coleman, rescued from injury, crossed into new signing Beto, making it 2-0. That sealed Everton's biggest achievement of the past decade, as they are your FM24 Premier League Imperialism winners. Once again, Spurs are denied another trophy.